Hey guys, it's mcfixit here. I want to show you how to make this really messed up disc. This is actually a compass by Latitude 64, but I just made a whole bunch of random fun things on it. And so there's lots of little Easter eggs if you play much disc golf that you will notice in this, and walk you through all the tools, the supplies, and the know-how on how you can do something crazy like this yourself. You're going to want a disc. I'm going to choose to use a white disc on this. That's the ones I prefer to do when I'm doing a lot of these disc dies, just because it shows up so much better. And I don't know what colors I'm really going to be using, so we'll get to that in a minute. But you're going to want to create whatever craziness you want if you're doing something similar to this. I'm just going to let you see all of it and all the different brands, all the different thoughts behind that went into it. And then I went ahead and cut it on an Oracle 6150. These things work really well. These are vinyls. You'll want some transfer paper. I literally just folded it in half, put a disc down, and drew lines on it with a Sharpie. I'm not certain if I'm going to use this, but I do have it normally handy. This just allows me to line things up a bit better. So I'll put that back off to the side. In one of my previous videos, I learned that you can sometimes use some duct tape and painter's tape to help keep some of the dye where it's supposed to, so I'll probably do that again on this one. Then we have an electric burner right over here, and it's pretty inexpensive. It's what helps with the hotbeds. That's the transfer paper. I know I'm going to be using red. That's by Prochem and Dye. That is a lotion dye. I might use some others. I got a bunch of them kind of out of camera, so like I might use purple. I don't know exactly what colors I'm going to use yet. I might do another color on the hotbed, and so I'll show you that right now. For the hotbed black, I use the iDye poly, and I use half of the little cartridge that comes with it, fill it up with water. That's about 8 ounces. This one's a little bit bigger, so this is the red iDye poly. It's about a 16-ounce bottle and 1 packet, and I just shook it up. And then with these, it's lotion, then it's a 1/4 teaspoon of Prochem and Dye. I do use a butane torch pretty often to get air bubbles out, especially out of the hotbed, and to activate some of the dye. Just makes it a little bit brighter. Dawn dish soap and water I use all the time. Acetone I use a lot. I have an old pan. Sometimes I will. I don't know if that's out of camera or not. It does look like it is. I'll move it just a little bit. I have a pan over here, and I'll just have that for my hotbed. I use a heat gun. Has 2 settings. I only use it on the 1 setting, the first setting. Sometimes I use a ruler. Scissors are really helpful for lots of different cuts. Sharpie. I normally have an X-Acto knife around just in case I need to make any additional cuts on the vinyl. A pick and scraper tool is really helpful. I use lots of gloves. I like to keep my hands relatively clean from dye, and a whole lot of paper towels. I have this off camera, a whole roll of them. And so just go ahead and get yourself a bunch just to get started, because you probably will use them. So let's go ahead and jump on in. The first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and erase the original stamp. This is a misprint disc, so there are little imperfections in the disc, but this is a giveaway for a youth league that I help lead with our church. And so I try to give away a disc each week for some different either challenges we do, just to get them playing some disc golf and growing the sport. So these are normally the most inexpensive disc you can get because they are misprints. They give them to you at a discounted rate, and there's nothing wrong with the disc. Sorry about that. I had an error on my SD card. I haven't had that in a long time. So I'm just erasing the stamp. It may have jumped a little bit. All I'm doing is using this acetone and trying my best to get everything off. Get as much of that color off. And again, you use a lot of paper towels whenever you do any of these projects. You can also use old rags and stuff. I would encourage it to only be white rags though. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of cap that back up. That thing is almost done. And I'm gonna use the side I really hadn't used. I'll just get another one. Again, you go through a lot of paper towels. I do like to clean it up afterwards, so it just does help. And we'll scoot all that out of the way just to make this a little bit easier to do. The next thing you have to decide is what you want to do with your disc die. I typically always start with the darkest colors first. And so you should be able to see what I'm weeding because it is a white Oracle 5160 here. And so I think I want to pull the MD -1, the Reinvent Your Game. I think I'm going to leave the MVP and do a different color with that. So let's go ahead and pull. And I printed this last night, so I'm hoping it's still pretty fresh, and it looks like it is. So anything you want to be black, we're going to go ahead and pull that because that's that first color we're doing. So I'll probably fast forward the rest of this video to just make it a little quicker too, but you're just pulling it, you're weeding it out. So that was a bit time consuming. I'm glad I fast forwarded that for you guys, but I got everything out that I want to go ahead and be black on this disc. And so that was kind of important for me to be able to do. One thing I do want to do real quick is go ahead and line this up. I'm going to go actually, let's go ahead and turn this on, get this warmed up, putting it on 2.5. Then I'm just going to draw some lines on here to just help me guess where center is on this baby. So I do want that to not get all over my clear disc. But wow, that does look pretty centered. Sometimes it's not super centered. And so this is kind of your last opportunity to center everything up. But overall, I really like how that's looking. Except I didn't center that up well with my centering job. That was silly. It'll be the inside line on the bottom, the outside line on the top. So it'll be this one and this one. So I don't know if that's really going to help me too much. But we're going to go ahead and get our transfer paper. And I'm going to scoot this off to the side just a little bit to get my head right over top of it the best that we can. And I think that looks good right there. Now this is not going to get all of the stuff out. This is just to start getting it what it needs to be and getting it off of the backing of your Oracle 5160. Let's go ahead and pop this corner, see if we can get there, or if we're going to need to scrape more. Yep, we're going to need to scrape more. So I did something kind of unique. It might be hard to see, but there is a double halo effect around this. They are pretty much right on top of each other. When I was making it, I wanted to make it thicker, and then I didn't realize what I actually did was just make 2 halos. So that does happen sometimes. That R, the center of that R, is not wanting to come off. gonna go on the back side. I don't always do the back side, but sometimes it does help to kind of push this through. You can see all the previous dye that's on that. That thing's been well used and loved over the time I've had it. Kind of come around to the side and see if it looks any better as I do that. There's just a lot going on this disc, so this may take a while to get up. So just be patient with it. Sometimes it's easier to go from the front, sometimes it's easier to go from the back. It just kind of depends what's going on. So I would say just take your time, making sure you're getting all of what you want up. And it does look like I might have to make it more black than what I was originally planning, but we're going to see how it comes out. We're getting there. We're close to the end, I promise. This just takes a while sometimes. Keep an eye over here, making sure that's not boiling. We just want your hotbed to just begin to smoke. Okay, I think that looks really good. So there's a couple of ways we can do this, and it's up to you. You can simply put this thing on it like this and get it all nice and lined up, which is probably what I will do. Or you can use this and do it the other direction. Sometimes I do like doing it this direction. Sometimes I feel like I can get a little bit more accurate, and it's hard to see probably on the camera, but you can see pretty well through the vinyl. And then we will just peel the vinyl up on top of here. And again, there's a chance I might have to make that halo effect black. It just depends what this thing's going to let me be able to do, which I don't really know at this point. I probably shouldn't have gone for the thicker halo effect on the Cricut because it gave it an extra cut. But we'll see what it can do. Sometimes your letters just fall off your fingers too. So we're going to spend some intentional time making sure as much of this stuff is sticking and down as we can get it. And hopefully we don't pull too much up as we do this and have to keep coming back, but sometimes that's how it happens. So we're not getting all the air bubbles out right now. The main thing is that we're pushing it down so we get all the different parts actually on there. Man, that came off really good. Go ahead and put the transfer paper back down. I use this anywhere from 10 to 12 times. Sometimes you can get away with more depending on what exactly you are doing. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been able to do in the past. Okay, so I have an idea. It's not the best idea, but I think I am going to go ahead and peel this. And then I'm going to go ahead and try to do something that I've only done once before and had a pretty good success rate with it the one time. There is just so many gaps in this that I feel like if I don't pull this now, I'm going to have issues later. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull all of this off. Which again, this is not what I really wanted to do. I'm going to pull the whole halo effect off. There's just so many gaps and broken things, and yeah. And there's actually kind of another layer to the halo effect I'm going to go ahead and peel off too. I don't know how quick this is going to be, because some of it's connected, some of it's not. So this may take me an extra couple of minutes to do. I'll probably just fast forward this for you. So we're going to go ahead and heat this thing up. So there's a couple of things you can do. A lot of times I will just use my hand, take my glove off, because the heat from your hand pressing against it really does help. Also, this is beginning to smoke a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. You do not want that to boil. And now we're just going to spend some intentional time working out any air bubbles, especially next to the design. You really want to be careful that no air bubbles. A lot of times I'll even push the air bubbles away, which sounds kind of silly, but it really does help. So just notice the R and the P in, I think it's the word Disc Sports, had a little bit of a mess up on the Cricut. So I'm just going to take a piece and put it over that to hopefully be able to not have just a bunch of black bleed through. So that is definitely something you can do. I always have quite a bit of extra just laying around of the vinyl. A lot of times you don't use the whole vinyl, and you can actually cut it off and save some for a future project or issue like what I have right here. Okay, let's go ahead and hit it up one more time. And let's make sure all of the air bubbles are out that we want out. Again, if they're not really close to the edge, sometimes I just push them back away from the edge, which is just the same concept as bringing all of the air bubbles out. It does work doing it that way. You just don't want them next to the edge because it will bleed through and make your stamp or your stencil not as quality as what you probably want. Okay, now this is where it might get a little weird because I want to do this a different color than the rest of the disc. I am going to cover a whole lot of this with duct tape. And yes, this is a weird process, I know. It worked the last time I did it. The only thing I had was a couple of leaks between, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time pushing them down. I'm just getting like 3 to 4 inch pieces, and anywhere that you want it to continue to stay with that color, you just go ahead and put it down. Where it leaked was on these corners, so I'm going to try something a little different if I can to hopefully enable that to keep doing its job. And it's sticky enough to stay on there, but not too sticky to where it pulls off the stencil. So we're just going to keep at it for a few minutes here. Again, I know this seems really silly, but I'm trying to do some new and different things, kind of outside of the box, and duct tape is one I've not seen on any videos yet or anything else, so why not try some new things? The last time I did it, I used really big pieces. This time I'm using much smaller pieces and seeing if maybe that helps. So we will see. I don't really know because I'm just making it up as I go, like I do on everything. It's all about experimenting and trying and seeing what works and doesn't work. So this is where I'm going to do something a little different than last time. I'm going to try to cover up more of the seams. So it's just a couple more pieces to where it's kind of almost double thick. I don't know if it's going to help, but by golly, we're going to try it, and I hope it does. So it's kind of maybe a little wasteful, but I've had this duct tape roll for a very long time. They make it in all different colors, so if you don't have a silver one and you only have black, I'm thinking it's going to work pretty much the same. Again, this is not my probably preferred method of doing it this way, but this is definitely cheaper than using a whole nother vinyl just for the one little thing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit it up with the heat gun, why not? And then it's really this edge line that I don't even say worried about, it's just the one I want to get the best. And I mean, it probably would help if I let this thing sit on there for a couple of hours, but I don't normally do that for any of my disc dies unless I'm doing a lotion die. That's about the only time I let it sit long periods of time. So we'll go ahead, pull this, put it right here. One of the things I like to do is use a little blowtorch. It helps pop any of the bubbles on top. Let's go ahead and submerge it. Then just let it sit. We're gonna give that 10 minutes to make that nice and black. Okay, now it's been 10 minutes. We're gonna go ahead and lift it up out of the hotbed. And go ahead, let it kind of drain a little. Gonna go ahead and quickly wipe it, making sure all of the areas we wanted to get blackish are blackish. I'm just gonna set this off to the side just for a moment here. I do like to go ahead and clean these off just to kind of help stop the dye. So that's just Dawn dish soap and water. That's what I primarily use to clean it off. Okay, I think that turned out really sweet. I think the next thing I'm going to do, I have a couple of other pans I didn't show you. I think I'm going to just take this and move this. I like to keep my black in that one. So I want the stripes to be red, and so it's the same concept. I don't know if I'm going to use that. It's just going to put, it's red eye dye poly, and this is 16 ounces, so I'm using a full packet. I'm not putting the whole thing in there, but it's the same concept as the other, except it's twice as much. We're going to go ahead and heat this one up. Because this is not a skillet, it does take a little bit more. I'm going to put it up to like 4. And then the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and weed out the claw stripes. So let's go ahead and do that now. So one thing I'm going to do, this is going to seem kind of weird as well, but I'm going to go ahead and cover up a lot of what we just did to reduce the amount of issues we might have. So I'm going to try to focus on this MD -1, whatever that means to me or you. Duct tape doesn't normally rip well that direction, so that's why I was having to kind of cut it a little bit. Probably just going to use the razor and cut this. Yeah, that's so much easier. Now that's not going to be like perfect, but that actually will kind of help keep you a little bit more lined up, and hopefully that will also remove any issues you have for bleeding. I do like red, but it is pretty dark when you hotbed dye it, and you don't want it to kind of ruin what you've been working so hard on. by making it a lot lighter. So that's why I just do this. This again is optional. Looks like I need to get some sharper scissors because these things are pretty dull. I have used them a lot though, so that's probably why. Okay. Again, I know that looks super silly, but it's okay. And I don't know if you notice off kind of the side of the screen, I made some blue as well. I think that's the color I'm going to do for the rim. And so same concept as what I just did. So that should be almost ready. For us. Oh, you also might be wondering what these little dots are. Those are actually air bubbles. For some reason I did create some extra air bubbles and this is starting to smoke, so I'm going to go ahead, scoot all this over real quick and remove it. This is going to be hot, but I do have some gloves on. Go ahead and turn that off. I do just want to set this a little bit real quick. Spend just a few more seconds pressing all this in. Again, I know this might be a little silly, but if it works, it works. That's what I always try to tell myself. I'm just ever so slightly cutting the top off. A couple of these that got a little close. And I think we're good there. So we're going to go ahead and set that down in there. Again, same concept. 10 minutes. Get some razor claws on there. Okay, let that thing go ahead and sit. Okay, so that is 10 minutes in the red solution. We're going to go ahead and lift it up and let it drain. And wipe it off just like so. And I do like to wipe the rim as well just to make sure. And we'll go ahead and put this out of the way. And we have one more to do, so we're going to go ahead and grab that blue eye-dye poly and dump it in. We're going to probably put the whole thing of this one in because we're going all the way to the edge of the rim. And we'll go ahead and put this up and turn it on. I'm going to put it on about 3.5. It is a little bit more than normal. And then we're going to go ahead, it sounds weird, but we're going to weed some of this back off, and it did look like it still got under there. I was hoping it didn't, but it did. That's okay though, because it should still say pretty dark, and it did. So this is where it's going to get kind of interesting to see how this comes off, because we do have to get to this rim we have kind of created, and hopefully not too much of the coloration went behind. That's the goal, at least. And you remember how many layers we had on this, so this will take a minute. So I am going to take a little bit of acetone and hit up where we do have a little bit of some leaks coming through, just to reduce that down a little bit. And hopefully that blue is dark enough to be able to shine through the little bit of overlap that we had. Again, that's not a perfect way of doing it, but it does seem like it does help quite a bit. If you know a better way of doing it, go ahead and put it in the comment section below. Like I said, I'm always learning. You don't ever kind of master this stuff. You get better and better, but there's still so many unknowns. So, I guess I'm just going to try something even more different than what I did before. We're just going to use some vinyl, and this is some leftover from a previous project, so maybe that's what I should have been using all along. I don't know. I'm just here for the fun, people. Oh, I did forget about the MVP. So maybe we make that blue too. Hopefully I didn't pull up any of the logo right there, and I didn't. Good. We're just creating and making things happen, you know. I don't know why I didn't think about just using some of this leftover vinyl I had. That probably would have been smarter than the duct tape. Because a lot of projects you can actually cut some of the vinyl and be able to kind of reuse it. I mean, even this project, I could have saved the whole outside of it, which is probably what I should have done, but I didn't. So you'll learn as you do this. Trust me. Sometimes it's super good successes. Sometimes it's like, oh, I should have done that differently. So we'll go ahead and weed out that MVP logo up there. the best we can. And that's starting to smoke, so we'll go ahead and turn that off. let's go ahead and press this down really good and get this nice and seated onto that vinyl. I don't know why I had never thought about just putting more vinyl on top of it until just a few minutes ago, but you live and learn. So we'll see if this process works any better, which I think it will. And if it doesn't, I'll figure something else out, or you can write in the comment section below what you would do differently. Okay, I like it. Let's go ahead and move this over. It is going to be hot, so do it carefully but quickly. Then we're going to go ahead and set this down in here for 10 minutes. I have stuff all over the rim of that disc. That's okay, it's just vinyl. So I'm going to set it down just a little bit more on the right side and then follow it up with the left. And then just let it float. You do want to make sure it is floating on there and you like how that looks. And then you're going to go ahead and let that sit for 10 minutes. And then we'll be back to clean it up and reveal the disc. Okay, we are at 10 minutes now. We're going to go ahead and lift it up and see what, oh my goodness gracious, that blue looks beautiful. I did not know how well that blue was going to turn out because I have not done this color before. But I think that turned out really sweet. So, gonna go ahead and set this up here without spilling it, hopefully. And we'll just, I'm gonna move it off the table. I just sprayed a couple of times just to make sure we are good to begin to weed. And so I'm hoping the weeding comes off really quickly because a lot of it's vinyl. But we will see. I probably will speed this up because I know it won't be super fast, but we can hope. Man, I think that thing turned out so sweet. There's so many different weird things on this disc. I hope you like it. You can still see where it says compass and also mid-range and 5501 in case you can't remember what your disc would be. But overall, this thing turned out super sweet. If it was helpful, please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know in the comments if you would do anything different or change things up. Thank you so much.